Hello and welcome to another episode of my sound design tutorial series. Nowhere the boy here. This time we're going to be diving into one of my favorite plugins, and that's iZotope Trash 2. Now, Trash is an incredibly powerful distortion plugin, and today I'm going to be walking you through how I apply Trash to a bass sound. So first off, go ahead and grab a bass sample or a bass sound that you like. I chose a kick from Zach Countryman's Modular Heat sample pack that's out on Splice. I definitely recommend you check that out. Super powerful pack. Now let's take a listen to this bass sound that we have. And I chose it because it's a fairly clean 808 sound. There's some interesting fuzz going up top, and I think it would be really cool to amplify that sound through Trash. So go ahead and create an audio effect rack to throw on this bass. And if you remember from an earlier tutorial of mine on parallel processing, we're going to allow the sub-frequencies to come through nice and clean, and then we're going to be applying the distortion to an upper frequency band here. So go ahead and set that up and then throw Trash in on this upper frequency band, and let's have a look. So first off, before I start, if you don't have Trash, you can get a free 10-day trial from iZotope. I definitely recommend checking that out. It's full functioning for those 10 days. You can freeze, flatten, export all the sounds that you come up with in Trash and have them for later. Trash itself runs about $100. It's worth every penny. So go ahead, drag Trash in, open it up, and the first thing you'll see is this menu, and these are the presets. Now, we're not going to mess around with them today, but I recommend that you go through, check them out, hear what's happening, kind of go through and reverse engineer the presets, and take a look at what's going on and how that preset is getting that specific sound. So that can be really cool, but let's go ahead and close that. And for today, we're going to be tackling the first 3 modules in Trash. We'll cover the other 3 in another tutorial. All right, so let's take a look at the Trash window here. So first thing you'll see on the left here is these different windows, and they're different algorithms, different distortion algorithms. So you have distort, drive, faulty, fuzz, heavy, retro, and saturate, and they're broken down nicely into different kinds of effects. So, for example, if you go to these fuzzes and we just start playing them on the sound, you can hear how it's already affecting the sound pretty intensely. And this is really cool. So I recommend going through, checking out the different algorithms. You'll find different algorithms work good for different types of distortion or on different types of sounds. And you really find that out through just experimenting and exploring. So let's pick an algorithm that we like. I'm liking how that sounds. Okay, so we got this set up. Now let's move ahead to this wave shaper. Now, what's a wave shaper? So it just shapes the waveform. So we're taking this incoming signal and we're gonna mangle it. So you can click on any of these points and adjust them, and you'll already hear if you're kind of confused with this XY axis, everything above here is the positive side of the waveform, and then the bottom is the negative side of the incoming waveform. So we can click anywhere on this XY axis and start drawing in breakpoints. And as you kind of sweep through the graph, you'll notice that you'll resonate different frequencies, and this is how you can get some really interesting harmonic distortion. Now we can start adding in a bunch of breakpoints, and the really cool thing is if you find that it's getting a little hard to adjust all of these breakpoints, you can go up here and you can zoom into any of the 4 quadrants, and then you can get even more in-depth with the waveforms that you're drawing in. And here there's no one right way. It's just about experimenting and really trusting your ears. So the cool thing, if we zoom back out, is if you click on any of these different tension points, they don't have to just be tension. We can go ahead to this drop down. You can pick linear, you can pick square, you can pick triangle, sine wave, stairs, and they all give a different sound. Ooh, I'm liking how that sounds. So you can go in and you can adjust all of these and make them different wave types, and it's all gonna affect the sound differently. So if you've started, messing around on this side of the graph and you try to click over on this left side and you're like, I can't click on anything, all you have to do is select the bipolar function and it'll just mirror whatever you did on the right side to the left, and then you can go in and adjust the left side by itself. So then you have log mode here. So if you select log mode, it basically softens the distortion. So I like turning that off because you get that real wild distortion. And then you have DC filter, which it's normally toggled on, and DC filtering just filters out normally unwanted kind of like phasing and low frequencies that'll kind of come into play. So that's good to have that turned on, but it can be cool to turn it off, and you might get some like unpredictable distortion. So then if we check out these sliders, so you can kind of tame the sound a little more. If we go to the right, it's a much softer sound, and it's a much harsher sound all the way on the left. So that's just another way of affecting this graph. Really, really fun. So now let's take a look at this side of the window, and you have pre-drive, style, gain, and mix. Now, pre is adjusting the level of your signal before trash. Then you have the drive. That's really nice, which is adjusting the amount of processing on that particular part of the graph, and you can see that right there. Whatever you're doing, it'll apply to the graph. Then style is just another way of sculpting the sound. And then you have your gain and your mix, and that's good for if you want to allow a little bit of the clean signal to come through, to really blend in your distortion, and that's how you can get subtle effects. I think a lot of people, when they think of iZotope trash, they're like, oh, it's just really intense distortion and it's pretty over the top. But with your mix and your gain, and then your wet and dry over here, you can really mix in the sound to get that nice nuanced subtle fuzz just to add on top of a sound. And then we take a look over here, and you have your input and your output. That's very self-explanatory. If it ever starts hitting red, which it will, that just means that trash is preventing the signal from clipping. So we've done some really cool stuff. What more can you do in this trash window? Well, you can do a lot more. So we've only applied distortion to one stage. So trash allows you to pick 2 stages. So now we can do the same thing that we just did. We can do another distortion algorithm and get some interesting interplay between the two. So once again, I recommend you go through these algorithms, find some interesting combinations that work for you. Once again, you can click on this XY axis and drag it around and find a sound that's cool. So now, let's take a look right down here. So you have a solo button, which allows you to solo this particular, whatever module you're on. Bypass mutes this particular module. Then you have options, history, graph, and reset. Reset sends this particular window back to the initialized state. So that's really good if you find yourself getting to a point where the sound's just overly crushed and it's not what you want. You can just hit reset and boom, it's right back to the beginning. But the really cool function is this history button. And if you click here, it allows us to go back to any single change we made in this particular window. And, if we're like, oh, I want to go back to 10 minutes ago. You can click on any of these history points and it'll take you right back to where you want to be. So that can be good if you find that you went a couple steps too far. You can always go back here in this history tab. So we have 2 stages of distortion going. It's sounding pretty interesting. Maybe we want to sculpt the distortion a little more. So in either of these stages, you notice there's the shape window here. Well, you can click filter, and all filter does is allows us to sculpt the sound a little more. So it allows you to really control what you're distorting and what signal you're letting through. So we have 2 stages of distortion going on. That's cool. But what if we want to do 2 stages of distortion, but we want to do it on multiple bands? So you can hit this multi-band button. And right now it sets 3 bands, and we can do different distortion algorithms and wave shaping to each of these frequency bands. And you can toggle between them by clicking up here, or you can click right over here. And if you want that 4th band and you see it's deselected, all you have to do is right click up here and hit insert band, and then you'll have a 4th band. And you can, drag the cutoff point of these different bands so you can really blend the distortion to what you want. You can also solo and bypass each of these bands to listen to what they're doing on the specific sound. This is super cool because then we can do 2 stages of up to 4 bands. So you could do 8 different distortion algorithms on one particular sound, and that's really how you get some nice intricate and complex and harmonic distortion. So I recommend just messing around with that. Yeah, you can once again click on any of these bands, and then you can adjust it. Okay, so let's go back to that 2-stage distortion that we had earlier, because I really like that. So let's go ahead in this history here, and let's go ahead and go back there. That's awesome with the history button there. All right, so now that I've shown you a bit about this trash window, let's take a look at the filters that kind of bookend trash. So we got the filter 1 before trash and the filter 2 after trash. And these modules are both identical. So if you understand one, you'll understand both. It's just they're at 2 different points in the signal processing chain. So you go ahead and turn it on, select this filter 1, and it'll give you a frequency readout of the particular sound. And if you'll notice, there are 6 nodes here that you can click on. And these nodes allow you to do simple things like, adjust the EQ of the sound. Let's actually go ahead and start messing around with this filter 2 first, because you're going to hear. There we go. The effect's just a little more pronounced. So yeah, you can click on any of these nodes and adjust the EQ. If you'll notice, they all start as just clean peak, and if you go in here, you can adjust it. So maybe you want a more intense EQ, maybe something like a screaming peak or something. And it's super good to kind of scan the frequencies and find which frequencies resonate really nicely, with the harmonics of the sound. So I definitely recommend going through these. I think the effects with these filter modules are pretty self-explanatory. But the really cool thing that I found with these filter modules is the modulation. So if you go ahead and click here, modulation, the mod type's set to be off. So we can either choose an envelope or an LFO. In this case, let's pick an LFO. So an LFO is a low frequency oscillator. It's just allowing us to kind of sweep through the frequencies and get some more movement. So now if you take a listen to that. Kind of hear that. So we can adjust the rate. In this case, I turn the sync on, so you can get really rhythmic effects that are in time with the tempo of your song. Or you can turn the sync off and just go by the frequency. And this is, once again, another rabbit hole for getting more movement and adjusting those sonic characters in the sound. So I can't recommend enough just messing around with this and finding out for yourself. So yeah, all these nodes, you can do different LFOs and like envelopes. And you'll see how fast the LFO is going based off of this dot that goes back and forth. And this is so fun. So these combinations of these two filters can be really powerful, especially after messing around with trash for a while, because now we can go back into this filter 1. And so let's maybe click right here, change that to maybe, I don't know, a saturated. Let's do a saturated low pass. And let's set an LFO on this as well. And sometimes the effect can be really subtle. Sometimes the effects can be really over the top. And, at any time, if you don't like what's going on, you can always hit reset. Boom. And we're back to square one. Stay tuned for a part 2 of this. I'm going to be diving into the convolve, dynamics, and delay. And it's through all those 6 effects that you can get some really, really unique distortion effects on your sounds. But with these 2 filters, and especially with this trash window, if you get a hold of that and start messing around, you're going to find yourself getting some really cool results. Thanks everyone for watching this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. As always, let me know in the comments or in a message, what you thought of this tutorial. Thanks everyone for the suggestions so far. If I haven't gotten to the particular topic that you wanted yet, have no fear. I've read all of your messages, and I'm definitely going to be covering those topics in subsequent tutorials, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, between time, I wish you happy exploring with trash. It's such a fun fountain of discovery and such a powerful tool. This is Noah the Boy. I hope you have an excellent rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.